great energy. I'm the second to the last talk, so we're almost done. So for today, we will be talking about Agile alone won't work here. I'm kind of that person in your group of friends that just is going against everything and does not really agree with anything anybody is saying. But I have the pleasure to be that person today. And as a designer, there have been times where I feel like my process has frustrated my creativity, and I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. Yes? Yeah, good nods. Okay, so this is why I'll be looking at Agile from this perspective. Also, I will be exploring why Agile became the preferred solution, the issues with Agile UX, and why it needs support for true UX impact, and lastly, how to solve these issues. So starting with, what is Agile? Just a quick history lesson. Before we know whether Agile works or not, we have to know why Agile became the preferred solution. And this is because development at that time was done with waterfall. So waterfall was a linear approach where each phase is wrapped up before you go to the next phase. So after analysis, you finish that, and then move on to design, finish design, move on to development, and the likes. And it wasn't working, it was slow, it was not flexible, there was project overload, it was pretty bad. And so 17 software developers went up to a mountain, and they were frustrated about how, I think that's them actually. I just found this on Google. But they went up to this mountain and they went there to see a solution to waterfall. And after spending a long weekend there, they came down, kind of like Moses, with the Agile Manifesto. And it became somehow the commandments of development. And the Agile Manifesto, simple 68 words, very easy, and it brought 4 values. First, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Second, working software over comprehensive documentation. Third, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Change over following a project plan, which honestly sounds good. And Agile promised faster delivery, increased flexibility, better collaboration, improved product quality. And companies loved it. Spread like a wildfire. Features were pushed faster. Companies could scale and they could do more in less time. And before we go into the issue, just think about our first experience with Agile. When was the first time we experienced it? Mine was at an internship. And this was me as an intern, the stick figure actually. And I was interning at a startup. And I was wide-eyed, excited, curious. I was hearing this thing called Agile. And I wanted to be part of this cross-functional team. I wanted to work in sprints. I was so excited. And I remember we had this Scrum Master, and she would always come and say, an Agile team is a self-organizing team. This team is not organizing. And she was so frustrated. But honestly, as the startup was growing, design became an afterthought in this self-organizing team. It was so frustrating. We were making UX work for Agile. And so the design team ended up like this. The engineering team, they had their own thing going for them. With Agile, they were developing, it was great. The product team was good, going with the groove, but the design team didn't really fit into it. And if you look at the core principles of Agile with iteration, autonomy, and adaptability, it aligns with design. But why wasn't it working for our startup team? And this was our reality. Actually, this was an excuse for me to look at me, but this was kind of the mood board of our team, really. And as priorities changed, for instance, like research was not prioritized because we're focusing on speed, we're making design changes without validation, in the middle of developments of sprints, and there was burnout. Everyone was frustrated. The design team, the general team actually, we were dissatisfied because what we were delivering wasn't appealing to users. We were frustrated, and this was pretty much how we were. And this is what you get because UX simply doesn't work in a system created by developers for developers. And so, why doesn't it work? Firstly, rigidity. Now, it's actually quite ironic because Agile calls for flexibility in a way. And many teams become really inflexible because they're treating it like a strict set of rules rather than a flexible framework. For instance, we had this Scrum Master. This is another company, not the startup. The startup is not all problematic. Okay, it's a good startup actually. They're doing really well. But we had Scrum Master in this other company I worked for, and she would make us go to these meetings to explain Agile to us because we were doing Agile wrong. But looking at it, we were a team trying to make Agile into a mold that would work for us. But we had these meetings about Agile. In the middle of this, thousands of meetings we're already having, and we're all frustrated by it. Now, another reason why Agile goes wrong for design is choosing speed over user needs. In the race to complete sprints, user needs can actually take a backseat to feature completion. Another one is the lack of true iteration. Now, Agile actually encourages iteration, but many teams fail to actually iterate on their designs because they move linearly from one design feature to the next. And there isn't a lot of time to go back and work on these things that did not work. And if you're thinking, oh, we have retrospectives, that didn't work. And then the next thing is output over outcome. And teams often prioritize functionality over usability, forgetting that a truly working software must work well for the users, not for the developers. So think of this conversation. I feel like many of us, we've had a conversation like this. This is, for example, a video conferencing tool. The product manager comes and they're like, our users, they want to have the ability to share on dual monitors. So one monitor is to show the video, the other monitor is to share, and we should work on it during our next sprint. And the designer comes and like, okay, that's not bad. We should go according to like patterns what our users are used to. Let us dock and undock the screens. And the developer is like, yeah, that's going to take too long for one sprint. What about we have it in settings for dual monitors? And we can do that in one sprint. And then designer is like, but the users are not aware of this setting. So how would they know to go to the setting to get this done? And the product manager is like, you know what, let's just implement the solution for this sprint so it doesn't carry over to the next sprint. And we'll revisit it later. And what happens? Nobody comes to revisit it. And it becomes that setting forever. And the reason is because Agile is in a way being used as the design process. And this is what it actually looks like. This is Zoom. I'm not saying, no shade on Zoom actually, but when I was looking at this, I think that was a conversation that came to my head. So it demonstrates how Agile might significantly impact not just how each product is built, but how it's designed in the first place. And it's worrisome because it was never intended to be your process of design. Well, many teams actually use it as one. And this takes us to Maslow's hammer. When you only have a hammer, everything is a nail. So even if it doesn't apply, you would use Agile in that situation because that is the tool we are used to, or that is what's immediately available. And how do we fix that? We need to stop seeing Agile as a checklist of something we do. We need to start seeing it as a journey that we take and we can shape accordingly to our needs. And this actually starts with a mindset change. And the issues that stem from misunderstanding Agile in UX is a mindset thing. Agile is not just a set of ceremonies or artifacts. We have to make Agile work for UX and not UX working for Agile. I hope that's not confusing. Agile work for UX. So how's that going to happen? First, we start with continuous user research, obvious, yeah. But instead of having big upfront research projects, why don't we incorporate ongoing bite-sized research into each sprint? Another thing is collaboration. Fostering true collaboration is by ensuring that designers are an integral part of the team throughout the process, even in the development process, and not just at the beginning or at the end. And these practices make it so that design is central, and even in an agile, fast-paced environment, we're making sure that we're making user-centered decisions. Another thing is the UX debt backlog, and that is by maintaining a backlog of UX improvements alongside your product's backlog. And this will ensure that user experience is not neglected in favor of new features, and this will is design sprints. This is actually what we use at Just Eat, and we use this methodology to quickly iterate, to throw things at the wall, to see what sticks, and to just be sure. This occurs outside development, and we get to build, test, break things, and it's actually a really fun way to just design. So another thing we can use is complementary approaches. The first thing is design thinking, OG design thinking. There's a reason why that's like the first thing you learn in a design bootcamp. That's because it's actually very important. And as we grow as designers, we tend to kind of forget about it. And design thinking thrives on empathy, it thrives on creativity, it thrives on iterating, prototyping. And it's really all about understanding your users and uncovering creative solutions. And we need to keep reminding ourselves about that. Next is the lean UX principles. And it combines Agile, it combines design thinking, it combines lean startup, and incorporating a build, measure, learn cycle of lean UX helps to validate assumptions quickly. And I think this is actually the principle we mostly use also at Just Eat. And the best way to know something with the lean UX principle is really by trying it out. And with workshops, brainstorming, it can turn into something really tangible that you can put in front of a user. Next is Agile. I really enjoyed Lucille's presentation, and I like that she covered this. But quickly, Dual Track is implementing separate or synchronized tracks for discovery and delivery. And it gives opportunities to form ideas and problems and to see what will be explored and solved, tested and validated. And then the most promising ideas will be taken forward into the team, into discovery. And then it's a step further from Dual Track Agile. This is an exploration track that actually comes before the discovery and delivery. It's for ongoing research to explore and identify unmet user needs. So by adding this third track, you can actually determine before you go into discovery and delivery what you should be building. And also it reduces over-reliance on your PM committee the feature because you've kind of done this exploration track before, and then design is actually the forefront of how a product is actually being built. So, in conclusion, we need to shift our mindset as designers and understand that Agile is not a silver bullet. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it is a framework that needs to be molded, that needs to be adapted to your particular team. Also, it is okay to combine Agile with other approaches. You don't have to be strict, rigid in to make it by combining them with other UX approaches. Next is keeping the user at the center. In every decision, big or small, we have to think about how the user is impacted. And also, the culture of true iteration and learning helps us to embrace failure. I know it's a scary thing, failure, but it is also a learning opportunity. It helps to bring continuity and refine your processes and products. And by keeping these things in mind, we can create products that are truly impactful, and remembering that the goal is not necessarily to use Agile, but to create great products that users love. And Agile can just be a tool to get us there, or maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, thank you for listening.